Disruption is everywhere. In work and society, it's been deconstructed.
Yeah.
Everything's collapsing.
The position was eliminated. I'm a single mom. My kids and my family are reliant on me as a sole income. And then all of a sudden, that's all gone. So what do you do?
People are hurting. People are traumatized. People are confused. The amount of stuff we're carrying is eating us up.
Yeah.
This moment requires greater vulnerability.
Yeah. I want to be really, really clear. I mean, this is really for everybody.
Meet Eloiza Domingo, a globally recognized culture innovator and crisis management leader. As a former Fortune 100 executive, she's testified before the U.S. Congress, led the launch of the largest transgender health center on the East Coast, and she was even named one of the top 100 most influential Filipino women in the world by the Filipino Women's Network, recognized by LA Times. She's now the CEO of Eloiza Speaks, Coaching and Consulting, and a dynamic keynote speaker that delivers every time she's on stage. Andrés Tapia is a bold transformation strategist, elected official, and globally recognized thought leader. He's the author of several influential books and brings over 25 years of experience guiding leaders through disruption with culture, character, and strategy. As president of the Andrés Tapia Strategy Group, Andrés delivers powerful insights and a fearless approach to building inclusive, future-ready organizations. With bold voices, lived experience, and a fearless mindset, they're not here to play it safe. This is where transformation begins. This is Disrupt.
Hey everybody, welcome to our first episode of Disrupt, the podcast with Andrés Tapia and
Eloiza Domingo.
And we're here to just tell you a little bit about how we got to this place of this podcast and the vision for it.
And we hope that that inspires you to watch, to listen, and to engage. So, I remember when you and I were randomly at your house, and we were talking, we were just having dinner or something like that, and then we kind of started talking about just life topics. And then we found that because you and I started, just kind of connecting on commonalities. We said, oh my gosh, this is kind of like a podcast, and it kind of rolled, from there. I don't know, I guess for me, I don't know if I ever really thought that we would actually be here filming this with a real, launch of a podcast.
I know, but here we are.
But here we are.
Yeah.
And so let's tell our audience what this is.
Yeah, so as we talked personally about disruption and professionally, yes, there's the how do we deal with it to mitigate the negative aspects of disruption.
Yeah.
But we very quickly talked about how disruption, personally and professionally, meant more opportunities to really do some things we've been wanting to do for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm going to take one step back. Even though I went through this with you, I think one thing that I'm impressed by and happy with, but I want to acknowledge here, is that we actually leaned into the disruption. I think either of us, because there was so much change, I mean, not just from environment, but like you said, personally and professionally, we could easily have been like, well, I'm out. Like we could have taken another route. We could have easily gone, I'm just going to do what I'm used to, get another job, go back to corporate, or whatever like that. But we actually leaned into the disruption. And to me, we owned the word disruption, hence the name, of the podcast. But it took us a little bit, I think, to get there at the same time.
So Eloiza, I think we got to this Disrupt the podcast because we realized that we're both been disrupted in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been in corporate for a long time, very successful careers. What was your disruption?
Yeah, well, I was in a role at Allstate, and the position was eliminated, and like many roles, eliminated across many fields, and I think a lot of our colleagues are going through that. I mean, I'm sure many of you are going through that. And for me, that was a massive disruption because I've been in my field for over 25 years, as you mentioned. I'm a single mom. My kids and my family are reliant on me as the, as the sole income. And then all of a sudden, that's all gone. And so what do you do?
Yeah.
And I know for me, I remember I called you and I thought, I'm going to default into just getting another job, and going back to corporate. But there was something inside me that was like, I don't know, like maybe this is an opportunity to lean into the disruption. So for me, Andres, that was honestly disruption of almost a pattern of being in these executive roles, leadership roles, good roles, places that I've learned from and things like that. But then it was almost like I'm going to pull the rug out from underneath you, and now what are you going to do?
And remember what I told you?
You said to me I was ready to go out on my own.
Yeah.
And I didn't really believe you.
Yeah.
Because that was really, really disruptive. That was really disruptive.
Yeah.
And you were one of the first people that actually allowed me to think that way. At the same time, also the environment around us, as you mentioned, was just being it was kind of almost like falling apart,
Exactly.
dismantling. And so at that point, it was almost like I didn't know what else. I didn't know what other choices there were, I guess.
Yeah, and some of the parallel with me is that I was, given where I am in my career, I was gearing up to move on my own, been one as an innovator, as a disruptor, feeling that I had done as much as I could, and I wanted to do more and really sort of on my own platform.
Yeah.
And but the disruption for me is indeed what you talked about. The field we've been in was sort of being decimated, and so it wasn't about doing more of the same, and that was the disruption. It's like, I have a plan, I'm moving that plan, but how I thought the plan was going to go, that's not going to work.
Isn't that, yeah.
But I didn't let it stop my plan,
Yeah.
but I had to change the plan. So I had to disrupt what I was planning on doing, even though I still had a plan.
Yeah, right. Which again, I think, and I think that that's really good. I think the other thing too that I loved, Andres, is that even though right now you and I are talking about kind of the primary disruption for both of us was primarily work related for us being in corporate, for-profit, corporate, we also really grew our friendship at the same time, which I know for me was really, really fun. And then over time, for me at least, I started discovering that you and I were also in some phases of disruption personally.
Exactly, yeah.
And then you talked with me a lot about this concept of disruption in, you called it play. And I had no clue what you were talking about because I knew what professional meant and I knew what personal meant. And you and I talked a lot about that. Our friendship deepened, right? But then you kept talking about, well, that's disruption in play. So I would actually love for you to explain, because even now I'm like, what exactly does that mean?
Because we're going to cover it.
We're going to cover that in the podcast,
Yeah, and actually let's back up just for a moment.
Yep.
Disruption is everywhere.
Agreed.
It's in business and technology and healthcare and entertainment, how we go on vacation, how we go dating, right? Disruption is in how we actually play. In terms of, when we're dealing with screens, when we're dealing fractionalized time. I think that there's no area of our lives that is not being disrupted.
Yeah.
So you and I, in the end, as we sorted through it, we decided that Disruptive Podcast would be focused on 4 coordinates.
Yep.
Work, play, relationships, and society.
Right.
As much as we are about organizational transformation and change, and that is a core of what we're doing here, we believe that people are looking for something more holistic.
Yeah.
This dichotomy between work and play, or work and our personal lives, right, and work and society has been deconstructed.
Yeah.
Everything's collapsing into itself. So why not make this podcast about disruption, about the totality of it, and not just narrow cast
That's so true.
to just organizational and
well,
career.
exactly. And also because you and I think in our career have really talked about how we as human beings and really we are all dynamic. For me, especially as a woman, especially as a working mom, people have said, oh, you have to figure out work-life balance. That doesn't that doesn't exist. So I like this idea that you and I came to about this holistic. Let me ask you a question though, because I don't know if you and I have had this conversation. I think maybe we have, but there are other podcasts out there though, Andres, that talk about disruption. I mean, and this word about disruption has been, it's the hot topic, it's provocative, it's pejorative potentially. So like if I was a viewer and I'm like, yeah, but I could look up disrupt podcast and come up with a lot of things. So like what makes us different? What makes us special?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, the holistic approach to disruption that we just talked about,
I agree with that.
Is that I think is, because usually it's either technology people, or people looking at disruption in politics, et cetera, et cetera. And we're having an integrative approach, number one. Number two, in that integrated approach, we're making it very personal. But as the strategists that we are, and the creative innovators that we are actually bringing strategy, innovation, scalability, organizational transformation and change, implications for leadership and management and talent and we're going to talk about dating.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to talk about raising children, right?
Yeah, right,
we're going to
right.
this world of disruption.
Yeah, so true.
We're going to talk about, what is it like to plan a vacation in a world of disruption. Now, we're not going to give tips about how to go on a cruise, but we're going to talk about the changing nature of how we plan our vacations has an implication for how we live our lives on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So we want to really spill over, literally, into every area of our lives as we talk about how disruption is changing the world. In that process, it's changing us, and in that process, how do we change the world in return?
Right.
How do we become disruptors as we're being disrupted?
And I think that's the important part. This idea of innovation is really, really an important part of, the question that I wanted us to make sure to answer for ourselves, but also, our listeners, is this idea of so what makes this different? And I think it is that not only the leaning into the disruption, knowing that it is a normal, typical, expected, holistic part, of our lives. It's happening all around us, but innovation can actually breed from it. And I think that's critical.
Yeah, actually, not can, it's a necessary condition for innovation.
Yeah.
Without disruption, there's no innovation.
Yeah.
Because if there's no disruption, it's status quo. You don't need to invent something new because it's working, but there's a lot of things not working. A lot of things that need innovation and disruption. And this is sort of, when we talk about what we want to offer, is to say, yes, there are defensive, protective ways to deal with disruption. That's not what this podcast is about.
Yeah, that's a good...
People got to take care of business.
Yeah.
You got to put up the fortifications and take care of things. But we're looking at the opportunities that disruption offers for us to live better lives, to do better work, have bigger impact on more people and society, because we are not trying to control disruption, because we can't. But as someone who grew up surfing, you can't control the wave.
Yeah.
You can't control where it comes and how big it's going to be. But what you got to do is you got to position yourself to catch the wave. And when you catch it and you feel the tug and you jump on the board, you got to ride the wave.
Yeah.
You got to work with what the wave is giving you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we want to offer our viewers is how do you ride the wave of disruption to have a thrill of a ride and not get wiped out and get to the shore.
Yeah. The other thing I'm also really excited about, and this is probably a little bit more selfish than anything, but I think that for our viewers who know us, I mean, you can Google Andrés, you can Google Eloiza, and you can see our career and you can see the books, that he's written, the articles that I've published, the stuff that we've done. But I think what's actually really interesting is that you and I are going to talk about some other stuff about us, about our lives. We're going to share some things about our lives. We're going to be a little bit more vulnerable here in different ways than you may have known Andrés, Eloiza. And that's also really exploratory for me and you, actually.
Absolutely, yeah. And and that's part of our disruption.
Yeah.
Because as corporate people, you carefully manage
That's right.
for the sake of the corporation.
Correct.
It's not a judgment there.
No.
Because you're not representing yourself, you're representing the corporation. And also, but set aside the corporation, there was also been an ethos for executive leaders to say, well, be contained, don't reveal too much.
That's right.
And obviously, we're not talking going full Oprah necessarily, but we're going to move in that direction.
Yeah.
Because we feel that people are hurting, people are traumatized, people are confused, and we're part of that journey.
Yeah.
And we believe that one thing that as leaders, as executive leaders that we've been, you got a role model.
And that's what's,
And we believe that this moment requires greater vulnerability.
Yeah,
because
it
if we're
does.
not vulnerable, the amount of stuff we're carrying is eating us up.
Yeah.
We and everybody else is carrying so much. We want to offer permission just by us being vulnerable.
Living in that, I agree.
So we're going to take steps of vulnerability that we haven't taken before.
I know.
But we believe that is one evidence of
it is.
disrupting ourselves. Is we got to do things differently if we want to reach people differently.
Right, and that's the thing, Andrés. I think that's the thing is that what I'm excited about is this podcast came out of a journey that you started on your own, I started on my own, then we started kind of together.
Yeah.
We were on almost parallel journeys. We decided together that it was it might just be fun to figure out this disruption together. In a way, it's relatively therapeutic, at least for me, to have these conversations, but I also think that it would only be realistic for us to live through this, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
if we're gonna say, hey, viewers, here's some solutions in terms of your disruption, and then for me and you to kind of sit back, that's not real.
That's not
you know?
real, yeah.
So I think that that's what's actually going to be really, I don't know, interesting about this podcast.
It is. And we're talking about real-time changes.
Right, and that's what I was going to
Even
say.
as we do these episodes,
correct.
things are going to keep unfolding.
That's exactly
because
right.
we're in disruption, we're riding the wave. But
Exactly.
I think that's what we want to offer our viewers is the real thing.
Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, we're also going to have fun.
Oh
right?
yeah, that's therefore the play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So and that's I think what's going to be really cool because you and I have talked about things like where you work out, some things about like we're here in Highland Park and like how beautiful it is, places to eat, you know. So that's play.
And those are going to show up in
and
our
those are going to show up in some of the
and not to mention that we both love to dance.
Yeah.
Right. And
we both love to eat.
Yes.
Yes.
And so the arts and music and beauty and aesthetics and all those things and lifestyle issues and sort of living healthily, eating healthily, all those things are very important. And we're going to bring that. Life is hard. And we're going to deal with the hard things, right? And we're going to be strategic and we're going to talk about strategies and root cause analysis and alternative models.
That's the corporate strength
stuff
that you and I bring. Yep.
Yeah, and we're going to bring that, and that's going to be centric.
Yep.
But we're going to accompany it and adorn it with a more human part of living lives, and in the opportunities that organizations provide to make transformational change. We're going to talk about the opportunities and the hardness of it.
Yeah.
But the same with the hardness of life, but then the beauty of life.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we're always going to keep pointing in the direction of we're going to leave our viewers inspired, educated, but also with practical things they can do.
Yep.
And with the hope that, yes, disruption can suck, but it doesn't have to.
Right.
And it could be exhilarating. And that's where we're going to end up every single time.
Absolutely. One thing, as you were saying that, Andrés, I also want to point out, I think naturally, because you and I come from corporate, I think naturally the audience would be maybe people that we know, other corporate leaders, people who run organizations and things like that. I want to be really, really clear that because of the things that you and I are going to talk about, because of the way that we're going to have practical solutions, but also kind of intersections of identity, I mean, this is really for everybody. Anybody who, disruption is so broad, and that's, I think, the point. So I want to make sure that people who are watching, this episode or hearing about us, I don't want you to say, oh, well, Andrés is a former, executive, Eloiza is a former executive for corporate, that doesn't really fit me. I think that they'd be surprised pleasantly. I think somebody who is going through, I don't know, disruption in applying for college or trying to figure out an interview or going through a personal crisis, figuring out if you're going to buy a fifth dog. I bought the fifth dog, by the way, which I did. Yeah. I said yes to the fifth dog. My hope is that the way that we've designed the podcast and the way that we've designed our conversations is that it doesn't really matter where you are in any stage of life. Disruption, like you said, is a part of life. And that hopefully listening to this, that you can say, you know what? I don't really come from the places that Andrés or Eloiza come from, but what I hear is...
I can apply.
Exactly.
I can relate to it. And in fact, we actually have evidence of that in a more casual way as we've been in our daily lives. We've been sharing with all kinds of people outside of corporate what we're doing, and we talk about disruption, and we ask them, how's this disruption in life affecting you? And they tell us, and then we tell them about the podcast. The person I go to who helps me do the facilitated stretching, which is awesome, by the way, I highly recommend it, because they stretch in ways that you can't get there on yourself. But a 23-year-old tells me, I want to listen to that because my life is very complex right now and I'm trying to find my way through these things. And we've had people who are retired, we've had people who are non-corporate, non-profit people, government people, startups, so we're attracting to the topic all kinds of people because this is affecting everybody.
Yeah. So I think that's what it's going to be, as you mentioned, the word attractive. I think that's going to be attractive. I think it's going to be fun. I think there's going to be lightheartedness to it. I'm also really excited because we're going to introduce new people, new disruptors to people. So we're going to have guests every once in a while, and we're going to take people out on journeys. I think the other thing, too, that you and I have talked about is having a space for this. I mean, because we're in a park. This isn't our studio. This is a great place to be.
That's right.
But we talked about how are we actually going to do this.
And we said, we both said, hey, we have an idea.
Yeah.
If we're going to do a podcast, we need a podcast studio. Let's build one.
Let's build one.
And actually, we did.
And we did.
Yeah.
And we did. And
So
we're
we
going to take you all there.
So we show them
Yeah.
what we came up with?
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
Come to our studio.
Yeah, come to our studio. And here it is. So welcome to Disrupt the Podcast, our studio.
Yes, and we said that we were going to, have a space for us to have some great dialogue. So we're really excited. We welcome you to our amazing studio.
Yeah, and our guests will be both, people that have a national or global reputation as disruptors, but disruption is happening everywhere, and therefore innovation is happening everywhere. So we want to bring people that are just known in their communities, but we want to showcase them because for a reason, in either work, society, player relationships, they're doing something innovative. So
we want to introduce them to you.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're going to be here every other week. That's when we're dropping episodes. So we hope that actually, let me correct that. Yes, every other week, but we may not be here, even though this is the studio where we'll be.
This is home base.
Yeah, this is home base.
But we're going to venture out into the field. Like we started off outdoors.
Yep.
We're going to go back. We love outdoors. We're going to go to museums. We're going to do workout places. We're going to go to a place where innovation is happening. And sometimes we bring the innovators here.
That's right. Exactly. So every other week, you join us either here or
there.
Awesome.